Welcome to Fear Coded, a podcast where we talk about media from the horror genre and take a queer reading of a single book, video game, film, podcast, or TV show and explore just how queer horror can be. And in this episode, we're talking about the 2000 movie Ginger Snaps, directed by John Fawcett and written by Karen Walton. I'm David.
I'm Marilee.
And I'm Tyler.
And while we're enjoying some delicious and viscous strawberry shortcake, I want to check in and say hello to my co-hosts on how things are going for them in a landscape of horrors that our real world has to offer. What's making y'all scared and what's making you feel prepared?
The thing that's making me feel prepared, and I think it's appropriate for this episode, is dogs. Just the existence of dogs, the concept of dogs, the reality that there is dogs. I just love dogs. I'm definitely a cat dad. I thought I used to be a dog dad, but then I got a cat, and now I'm full on a cat dad. But I am visiting my mother right now, and she has two wonderful little Pomeranians that she got a couple months ago.
Cute.
One is named Coco, and the other is named Buffy, after Jimmy Buffett, because my mother is super big into anything Florida beach related. And so I'm going to play with them and pet them, and they're so happy, and they jump on me, and it's super cute. And the only thing that I don't like about them is the barking. There's a lot of yapping, but other than that, they're so pretty and so cute, and I love them.
Aww. I love that.
And so they're kind of new dogs, though. These are not long-standing. These are not like childhood dogs.
No, not at all. These are dogs she got like in January, February. Yeah, they're wonderful dogs, and I love them. They're adorable.
That's
Well,
pretty
wonderful.
nice.
Does this make you want to have a dog back at home?
No.
Okay.
I love silence too much. And I am a cat dad, but unfortunately my cat passed away last year.
Oh.
I know, but I saw a commercial for like Purina cat food, and the cat was like, doing all its cute cat things with the owner, and I was just like, no, I want a cat so bad. I'm so ready to have a cat. And also, I don't have to worry about a werewolf coming and eating my cat. It seems to only want to eat dogs.
Yeah. Here's the deal: is I was about to say that in sort of a you like your quiet, cats are normally very quiet, but I think Marilee has proven to us that not all cats are quiet. Some cats are terrorists, and that's okay.
Listen, if you want a cat that will eat all of your electronic wires, then I have a cat for you. I've gone through over 10 phone cords this year.
It just feels like, I don't know, it feels like too many, Marilee. It feels like too many.
Yeah. No, it's too many. I agree with you. I've gotten to the point where there's like a pretty reasonably priced 5-pack that I buy every time I've only got one left.
Just in case.
And you could look through my Amazon shopping history. I've bought that particular item too many times.
This is my cat.
Oh, hello. What a little cutie.
I saw her in a shop window, and she is stuffed and fat and perfect. And I have named her Mantequilla, which is Spanish for butter, and I don't know why. And you know what? She's a good girl. She's doing a good
love
thing.
her.
Well, David, she's fat and soft, so I think butter is an appropriate name.
Thank you. Yes, I love her.
Love her. What about you, David? Are you feeling scared or prepared?
I'm feeling scared. It's so scary. There's too much that is happening in this world at a local level, at a global level. Right here on the date of recording, we just got some pretty scary, I would say, news from the Supreme Court of the United States, and still trying to figure out what all of that means. And it's just like a reminder about the desire to consolidate political power and how people who are marginalized, and that's often where queer people end up falling, are often like victims to that consolidation of power. And it seems to all be to like, I don't know, make like $5. Like in like the real scope of things, like, is it worth it? And I guess the answer to one guy is yes. And so then we all kind of fall into it. So I'm feeling a little scared, a little bummed about that, even though I'm very far away. It's hard to get away from.
Yeah, for sure.
It is hard to get away with them. I mean, you're right. It's very depressing, the news here in the United States, and I also should feel very scared about that. But here's the thing. After a certain point, I can only take so much bad news before I will look into a wall and not want to get up in the morning. So I'm choosing to feel prepared in spite of all of that, simply because I have no other options.
I love that. That's a real final girl answer, Marilee. I appreciate that.
Agreed.
Yeah. I just have to live my life. I got a croissant this morning with my sister. I'm hanging out with you guys.
Fuck yeah.
This is all that I have. I will be prepared for it.
Okay, but really important question. Flavored croissant or
so it was technically a croissant. What it actually was like roasted vegetables in like a croissant cup.
Yes.
It was so yummy.
That sounds
Listen, Heaven's
incredible.
Bistro in Austin, you're doing God's work, and I appreciate you.
That is incredible. It's almost like, I guess it's not like a meat pie because there's no meat, but it was almost like a savory pie, but with laminated dough. I guess all pies have laminated dough, don't they?
Yeah, it was the lamination is different. I like to bake, so croissant dough and other kinds of laminated pastry are very different. But it was fantastic. It was so yummy. I really enjoyed it.
I love a savory croissant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They also have a Bangarang Mexican hot chocolate for beverage, which was so yummy.
I love a Mexican hot chocolate. It is one of the only few things that has like spicy, scary spices that I will go near because it gives me the promise of a hot chocolate.
Yeah, it's so good. This was just like hot chocolate with cinnamon and like a little bit of clove and no like spicy parts.
Yeah, I had one in Texas that had cayenne in it, and
that's how I prefer my Mexican hot chocolate generally, because I like a little bit of spice. But this was it was a delightful morning beverage.
It's good. You should be scared of it. I mean, it's scary, but it's good.
It's good. It's real good.
What I'm hearing is that whenever we do our first fear-coded live show, we should do it in Austin, and we'll have some Mexican hot chocolate at our desks, and we'll be sipping on that, eating our savory croissants, and fielding questions from the audience. So
yeah, I'm not sure that me drinking a hot chocolate with cayenne in it is good for recording. I think that's probably
David,
a recipe
it sounds
for
like
disaster.
that's the exact reason why we should do it. It sounds perfect for recording.
Listen, I would love to have you guys. Please come to Austin. That'd be the greatest.
We'll do it. We'll have to make it happen.
We'll hit up South by Southwest. We'll hit the whole. We're gonna be be big.
No, Austin people hate South by Southwest, Tyler. You've walked into it.
I know, but we have to. It's for content, David. It's for content.
Can we start like at the Moon Tower like comedy festival
there
instead?
We go.
Like,
there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, or at Comic-Con. Like, do stuff like this all the time. Pick a scary comic and we'll go to Comic-Con.
Ooh, that could be fun.
See, always thinking ahead.
We've never talked about a scary comic either. We should definitely add that to the list.
Oh, don't make me read a scary comic. No. There are
You've literally
pictures.
signed yourself up for this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow, David, that's going to be scary stories, scary words, and scary pictures.
It's too many. It's too many things.
And how are you going to... You could technically beat a comic book with a baseball bat.
Yeah. Listen, I was so excited that at one point in time I'm reading the synopsis that Tyler wrote here, and you mentioned that there was a bat that was brought up, and it made me really happy, and I tried to put a bat emoji in, and it only exists for this kind of bat, the flying bat, and not this kind of bat, which is the swinging bat. So there's a pickleball or a cricket bat later in the notes.
Whatever works.
I really love that the bats are a thing that keep appearing in our episodes because you're very specifically focused on them. But then there's also bats on our logo, so I've just been using them a lot in like the social media stuff. So bats are our thing now. I hope you guys are ready for that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to eventually take down a Batman podcast at one point in time, but I'm ready because I have a bat.
Good. Great. I have a lot more Batman opinions than any one person should have, so I really can't wait.
Oh no. Well, let's save ourselves from that and instead focus on what we're here to cover, which today is the film Ginger Snaps. This is a 2000 supernatural horror film directed by John Fawcett and written by Karen Walton. The movie is about two teenage sisters, Ginger and Bridget Fitzgerald, who have to deal with the horrors of puberty and lycanthropy after Ginger is attacked by a werewolf the same night she gets her first period. Ginger becomes more bestial and passionate as the lycanthropy progresses, leaving Bridget to do her best to save her sister.
So, Ginger Snaps first premiered at the Munich Fantasy Film Fest in August of 2000, followed by a limited theatrical release in May of 2001. While not a box office smash, the film has gathered a cult following since its release. A sequel called Ginger Snaps 2 Unleashed and a prequel titled Ginger Snaps Back the Beginning were both released direct to DVD, although Ginger Snaps 2 did have a theatrical run in its native Canada.
Ginger Snaps has been analyzed over the years for its feminist themes. Ginger's transformation into a werewolf mirrors her coming of age into adulthood. Metaphors for sexuality, STIs, and the struggles of sisterhood abound. The movie is willing to show how growing up can be a real nightmare. How did we feel about the movie and all of its bloody gore?
You know, it's wild because when watching this, I felt so torn between, oh, this is like high camp, and, oh, yeah, sorry, this is a very pretentious art house film. Thank you for coming to my talk. So I felt actually kind of lost because it was like breakneck how fast it would change from like snooty hipster nonsense to like fun gay camp. And I guess I never really got what the thesis was.
You know, that's really smart. When I was watching it, I felt very much a similar kind of tug of war, but I never really thought to put it in those exact words. I think that that's a really smart way to put it. The thing is, I'm a hater from the day I was born to the day I die, and it was really distracting for me to watch, especially the very beginning parts of the film, because Bridget's wig looks so bad.
It's so funny, Marilee, because you put this in the notes and I had to go back and look because I don't notice things like that, I suppose. But boy, when you are looking for it, it is hard to not see it.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. But so my history with this movie is that I definitely saw parts of it when it used to run all the time on the Sci-Fi Channel. They would like throw it on as marathons. So I've seen parts of it. I never really sat down to watch the whole thing before this point. But truly, every time I would see Bridget, I would think there's something wrong with what is going on with her face. Her hairline looks so hard. And this was before I ever saw a single episode of RuPaul, before I knew what wigs were supposed to look like. It always looked so bad to me, and I could never figure it out what it was until I looked at it with my adult eyes. And it was too distracting for me. I'm so sorry. I know you saved your budget for the werewolf of it all, but it looks bad.
Yeah, this is a podcast by haters for haters, and I can agree. Oh boy.
Stop.
A troublesome wig, to be sure.
Yeah, I try and be positive because I like being positive. I like loving stuff. I cannot get over a wig that bad.
Yeah, I found there to be definitely some issues like that in my take on the movie. I agree with David. I feel like the thesis statement of what the movie was trying to say got muddled tonally. It was kind of all over the place. When it was funny, it was really funny. And when it was scary, it was really scary. But it's that we're trying to find like a good way to balance them. And there was just no real doing that. I guess you could, like, on a metatextual level say like, oh, the movie's kind of all over the place tonally because when you're in puberty, you are also all over the place tonally. But I think I'm being a little generous by saying that.
I think so. Here's what I did love. Every scene, I was like, oh, we can talk about this. Oh, we can talk about this. So it did seem like a perfect fear-coded podcast movie, even though, like, I will never watch this again. And not out of scary reasons. This was not good to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. When I was doing the synopsis for this in our show notes, I was getting frustrated because I was just like, there's literally nothing that I could skip that happens in this movie. Everything in it is so dripping with, like, stuff for us to talk about that I'm just like, God damn it, just type it. Yeah. Yeah. But yes, I definitely like a weird sort of like a semi-nutritious meal that tastes not so great. Like it's good for you in a sense, but it's not gonna taste very good going down.
Mm.
You know, I do, I watched it last night. In the morning, I'm reflecting, I think I did enjoy it more the longer that I think about it. So maybe if you asked me next week or by the time if we watch the sequel, I will have really warmed to it. But I don't know. It's not a perfect film, which is rough to say about one of the greats of werewolf cinema.
Yeah.
Which is, I know, not a very high bar to clear, but still.
I don't know. It did all the werewolf stuff well. That was great. There was just some parts of it. I mean, we're going to be talking about like Sam a lot, and like I found Sam inscrutable and intolerable, and I was like, why does this man know things? Why is he here? What's happening? I don't know. Well, I mean, we're obviously going to get into it by the beat by beat.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about werewolves, since we're talking about a werewolf movie here. So
let's do it.
There's a couple themes to this movie that we wanted to point out that are going to become relevant as we discuss the film. One of them is, of course, werewolves in culture. So the werewolf has been a recurring monster or cryptid throughout history, but interestingly enough, it is not always depicted as a man-eating beast. If you go back to medieval literature, werewolves were sometimes depicted as men who had been cursed by a demon, but still in possession of a human soul, because the demon can't really corrupt that. That's something from God, so like hands off, demons. But these men who were cursed are prevented from murdering the innocent, so they're kind of seen as like gentle or very sympathetic, and eventually the curse is removed. However, the Hollywood werewolf is a very different story. Typically, these tend to be violent monsters. A werewolf is traditionally a human who has been bit by another werewolf or cursed in some way. The werewolf curse, quote unquote, is also sometimes depicted as an infection, which I think is a little bit closer to what we see in Ginger Snaps. But this, of course, causes them to change into the werewolf monster under the full moon. Often, the only way to stop the curse is to kill the werewolf with a silver bullet or just something silver and pure. But Ginger Snaps, as I said just a moment ago, really plays with this folklore. So there's a lot of tropes that the film plays with, and we'll get into that shortly. The other point about this movie that I think is really important to keep in mind is that this is a coming-of-age movie. Coming-of-age stories, or Bildungsroman, is a literary genre about a character growing from a state of childhood or adolescence into an adult. We've grown up with these kinds of movies, appropriately enough, and stories as well. These go all the way back. We have Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, but then speaking more in modern examples, we also have the original Star Wars trilogy. Luke Skywalker goes from a naive farm boy into a Jedi Knight by the end of the trilogy. So it's absolutely coming of age. Ginger Snaps depicts the growth of Ginger and Bridget as they both mature physically and emotionally into adulthood over the course of the film. So what do we kind of think about this movie in regards to those themes? I, for one, appreciated how much the movie was really willing to dig into the coming of age aspect of this. There's a lot of discussions about things related to growing up as a woman or as someone with, the anatomical parts to have a menstrual cycle that don't get discussed in movies, including horror movies. And I think that's really kind of brave of them to have done this, especially in 2000, which was definitely much more conservative of a time sexually than we are right now. But I still think you would have a hard time finding a lot of movies willing to discuss menstruation and actually depict it on screen that isn't just maybe like, I don't know. I really genuinely cannot even think of a big movie that has discussed that. So that is something I definitely appreciate about the movie. It's willing to engage with that.
I think that coming of age films specifically really have a great capacity to be monstrous in a lot of ways, because growing up, like the transition from childhood to adulthood is so monstrous for you to experience as a child becoming an adult. Everything is changing and you don't know the rules anymore. I think that it's a great space for queer horror to explore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and I like the werewolf at all. I mean, I think a werewolf story, this is the first time we've really covered a werewolf. I think there's a lot of fun lore about the werewolf only erupting once a month as your sort of monstrous form. I think there's a lot of feminist reading that we can do about that. I think that this is again where it's sort of like almost on the nose art house of being like, hey, werewolves and menstruation, huh? But I don't know. I mean, even the idea that like silver will cleanse you, it's something pure that will take something evil out of you. I think that that's a ripe discussion for a queer reading of any werewolf story.
Totally. Just like the notion that who you are can be cured it's always going to be having queer tones to it. So I definitely, this movie, I don't think immediately screams like, queer cinema, but it absolutely can be read with that kind of, that kind of viewpoint.
That's fair. And I bump into this sometimes with anything that we end up covering on a podcast, is that, of course, like my sensors are set to gay going into anything we watch for this podcast. So at first I was like, oh, they're lesbians, before I knew that they were sisters, because there is sort of this intimacy vibe even in the first thing. So even now when you're like, I don't know that it's a directly queer, I was like, but they were lesbians. They were like, I am like stuck on this like first impression that I have.
Right. Well, I think that's definitely something that we'll talk about, because I absolutely got that vibe as well. And I initially thought like, oh, they are lesbians, and then turns out they're not. Well, we'll see. But I appreciate that, like, when we discuss what makes this movie queer, we're also looking at the idea that we're queering what it means to grow up.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, and that's the building Romans of it all, right? That's the deal there.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that, like, it's not the traditional coming of age. It's not the traditional Billings Roman because there's a werewolf. But, like, just that it's monstrous, and there's weird sexual feelings that you're experiencing. Maybe they're not all making sense to you. They're very confusing. Like we all go through that during our time in puberty and teenage years. But I think for queer people especially, this feeling that I'm changing and I don't know what is happening to me and I'm scared about it, that's absolutely something that queer people can resonate with.
Yeah. Can I tell you my own coming of age story?
Please.
Yeah, of course. Okay. This is a safe space.
I was an apprentice traveling around teaching construction techniques to the residents of Italy's capital. And they'd ask me what this was. And I would say, it's a building, Roman.
God damn it.
Well, listen, that's the end of Fear Coded. So this was a great run, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed our podcast. I have to go walk directly into the ocean. Goodbye forever.
Goodbye. Oh, David.
Wow. I don't know how to recover. So I'll just say, was this movie queer? We've already started to talk about this a little bit. I think we talked about the eruption of the monster entering puberty, resonating with me, at least as a queer reading. But like, do you all have any other things to say to save our analysis of this as a sort of queer, theory-based view of a film?
I don't know what to say to you.
Are you still stuck?
No.
Still trapped?
No recovery.
Yeah.
I'm still horrified, indeed.
I'm still laughing about it.
Your pun was so much more damaging than anything I experienced watching this movie.
Yeah. So, how scary did we find it?
I thought this was pretty scary, honestly. I was scared. I guess I was tense a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. And then in like the third act, there were a couple of jump scares that really got me when we were using the monster effects. But then we were a little bit in like I think the werewolf looked great, but we were in a little bit of an uncanny valley. In Act 1, when it's camera flying and you just see a claw here and an eye there, I'm like really, really nervous. Once I get a good look at the mug of this thing, I'm like, oh, I could boop you on your snoot. Just boop, little boop. And he'd be gone.
It's Jaws. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day, is just like, what's scarier, the thing that you see or the thing that you can't see, Mm-hmm. So I think, I agree. I think the beginning of the movie, when we first meet the beast of Bailey Downs, it's terrifying because we don't get a good look at it, and we're just getting used to these sisters, and obviously we don't want a teenager being attacked and killed by a monster that's been eating dogs. but just like there's blood and we're going all over the place, and we're mostly focusing on Bridget and experiencing fear as a surrogate because she's going through something really scary. So I think that was all great. And then you get to the end of the movie and you see Ginger the werewolf, and like I thought it looked really good considering this movie was like really small, and you know it's not going to have like the same kind of budget that like a big AAA, you know, werewolf movie made by Universal Studios is going to do. But I thought it still looked good. It definitely had a little bit of an uncanny valley that made it less frightening, but I think it got the job done. It freaked me out a little bit. I think the parts where it's trying to be scary about being a teenager are much more effective than any of the werewolf scares.
Hard agree. You know, speaking of, you know, monsters and stuff, though, this next section in the notes is called Always a Werewolf and Never a Wye-wolf, which I really want to shout out because that made me laugh really hard.
You're welcome.
That's awesome. Well done, Tyler.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Ginger Fitzgerald slowly transforms into a werewolf over the course of the movie, illustrating the horror that is puberty and our teenage years. If you could pick a monster to represent your high school years, which would it be?
So the Wolfman concept holds a lot of shared DNA with, I think, what I would give as my answer, which is sort of the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation. I feel like there's an overwhelming need and message that I've received in my life to conform. And then the amount of mental energy that goes into that causes me to then break out of it into something, you know, monstrous and terrible. And the sort of symbiotic and parasocial relationship between who that person is and who I'm supposed to be is I mean, that was something that I experienced as an adolescent, like all the time. Who am I and how am I these two people at the same time before coming to some sort of reconciliation? You can have the body on Thursdays and every other weekend or whatever.
I really love that. That's a fantastic answer.
Mm-hmm. I had something a bit similar, just not really like, so backstory for Tyler here. When I was in 8th grade, I got sick with whooping cough.
Oh no!
You had pertussis.
I know. I was
vaccinate your kids.
Well, that's the thing. I was vaccinated, but around the time that you turned like 13, 14, you got to get a booster. It's just normally that doesn't happen because when you're 13, 14, you're not typically around babies that have whooping cough, so they don't. At least at that time, 20 years ago, they didn't make you do that. Just to be clear, I definitely was vaccinated as a baby. Vaccinate your children.
Yeah, but you're 10. You're based on our age. Your 10-year-old tetanus wouldn't have been Tdap. It would have just been tetanus. That's how kids get. That's how adolescents get pertussis now, is with Tdap. So vaccines have changed since you were a little boy.
There we go. Yeah, I would certainly hope so, since that was 30 years ago. So on that note, so I got whooping cough. I was homeschooled for a year afterwards because it just fucked up my body. Mm-hmm. When I got into high school, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was this little pale ginger kid walking into high school with all of these fucking giants all around me, and I had no idea what I was doing. So I ended up just kind of like watching people and trying to figure out how to behave. And then that way I resonate a lot with the creature from Frankenstein. In like the original Mary Shelley story, the creature was just kind of like, he was born, he was thrown into the woods, and then he just kind of observed and learned and read, but he learned how to be a human through that. And I felt that resonates with me because I also kind of had to learn how to be a human again after that happened. And, thankfully, I was embraced by a friend group who I'm still friends with to this day. I have since turned into the lovely and very handsome person that you are listening to today. So I wound up a little bit more like the creature in Lisa Frankenstein rather than the creature in the original Frankenstein novel.
I love that. Another great answer. I really sat with this. I thought about this for a long time because how do you answer a question like Maria? There was a lot going on, and I think I landed on a vampire because there are a lot of rules, not all of which make sense. You can't go anywhere unless explicitly invited, and it seems like it takes forever to get out of there. Also, the sun is your enemy, so very, very relevant to my high school experience.
So true.
The introduction that you gave to that almost makes me wish that we had a monster-based West Side Story. And I just think I don't know. Vampires are the Jets. Werewolves are the Sharks.
I'm going to find this for you.
I see good things coming in our future.
Yeah.
I just met a wolf named Maria. See, it's just the story tells itself.
Get Spielberg on the horn. We got to make this a movie.
Yeah, you think that's what I'm going to pitch? No way, baby, Jaws 5! Well, then, let's jump in to Ginger Snaps. And wait, I guess before we start, what's the deal with the title, gang? Is it Ginger Snapping? Is it that she's a redhead and I just couldn't see it because I'm colorblind? What's the story of this title to you all?
Well, Ginger is a redhead, so okay. I just jot that down.
Thank you.
Yeah, well,
Bridget is not. She has dark hair, so.
Well, Bridget's got a jank wig, merely. That's all I know about Bridget.
It's true. It's so bad.
Oh, boy.
Her hair also goes from red to white throughout the film.
That I did see. I saw her little rogue thing going on, but I couldn't tell if she was a redhead. I guess I'm more. Is it just a play on the confection treat, a ginger snap, or is it really about a person who has snapped because they have changed? And I guess I was left with that like open question.
I think it's working on all of those different levels. I think it's a really clever title, but it's also very campy, which is I think what initially made me think that this was going to be a little bit campier than it actually turned out to be, because it is referring to the cookie, but it's also referring to Ginger Snaps, as in like her behavior is switching up, and she's becoming a bad girl. But also, like, she's a werewolf, so she's going to snap at you with her fangs. So there's a lot going on there. It's a fun title. I really liked that part of it.
All right, well, it's all downhill from here. The movie starts in Bailey Downs, a town located in Ontario. That's right, babes. If this looks like an episode of a television show that you watched on the CW, it's because we're in Canada. You can tell because in the opening titles there is a U.S. casting director. Always a sign that we're dealing with a Canadian production. Amid a flurry of dog killings, Bridget and Ginger Fitzgerald discuss suicide and death in general as they plan out a photography project depicting them in various death scenes. While they have this conversation, Ginger reiterates her desire to die out of boredom, reminding Bridget of their pact from childhood. Out by 16 or dead on the scene, but together forever. A pact that they made when they were 8 years of age, a topic we will be coming back to. After presenting their photos to a classroom, Ginger and Bridget are outside playing field hockey. Yay, Canada. We meet Trina, a popular girl and bully, a boy named Jason and his horny friends, and Sam, the community drug dealer. During this scene, we learn the Fitzgerald sisters' place in the school hierarchy. They're weirdos, but nevertheless, they're very attractive. Trina bullies Bridget after being told that the Fitzgerald sisters were talking about ways Trina could be found dead, leading to Ginger retaliating. That night, while the sisters are preparing to steal Trina's dog, Ginger has her first period. Almost immediately, she's attacked by the monster that's been killing dogs across the neighborhood, the Beast of Bailey Down.
So, I think, based off of our notes, we all can kind of reach a consensus here. The relationship between Ginger and Bridget is pretty fucked and a little weird, and seems a little bit, like, on first take, like, a little lesbian, a little queer, and then we find out they're sisters, and it's just like, oh boy, there's so much happening here.
We have to turn to resident non-only child Marilee to talk about the closeness of these sisters. Is it too much, or is it just that their closeness is also centered around the macabre?
I mean, listen, I know that my family dynamic is very different than a lot of other family dynamics, so I can't speak from a place of total authority, but their relationship is really codependent, and in a lot of ways that I do not read as typically normative. Nobody really pointed this out, but I do want to note that they're like living in the basement together. Like they have 2 twin beds. They're clearly living in the basement, and like they have a big suburban house. So I feel like this has to be by their own choice. So this house has an upstairs, but they've chosen to live together in the basement, and that's just something weird's going on there for sure.
Well, let me ask you both. Did you grow up in houses with basements?
No, I lived in Florida.
Yeah, Florida does not have basements.
No.
Well, in Texas, not a lot of basements around either, especially where the rock is really hard. It's just too expensive. Mm-hmm. But in the Midwest, I will tell you, basements are all over the place. We love a basement. And there is something about a teenager choosing to relocate to a basement that is this sort of act of anti-establishment. And it to me, growing up, them in the basement was the least weird part of all of this, because it was almost like, well, they're 16, they're weird teenagers. Of course, they'd be living in the basement.
Well, so again, we kind of talk about this later, but Ginger's 16, Bridget is 15.
Right. That's right. They're not twins, even though they're one of the offensive ways that we refer to two children who are born very close together. Some sort of nationality twins, I think, is where those typically stem
Irish
from.
twins, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what that is. Which, what a choice. What a choice to say that. And...
So that's the only defense I can give of the basement.
Yeah.
I will also just say, we don't talk often about like set work, but for a very cheap movie, the basement looks very unsettling from shot one.
Yeah,
this is very scary.
Unfinished. It's real, like raw concrete.
Well,
I have no idea why anyone would choose to live in that. Like, looking at the walls made my teeth hurt. I can't imagine touching them.
Well, they do it because they're goths. You know, that's their whole thing. That was part of what I got from this movie and their relationship, is that they're so goth that it feels like someone looked at the encyclopedia and looked up what a goth is, and they were just like, great, that's what they're going to be depicted as in our movie. It's just, it's almost like a parody that they're so macabre and they're so edgy, and they Bridget's hair is all over her face, and Ginger's constantly wearing a hoodie, and it's just like, it's so much that aspect to me felt very campy,
right? Exactly. Yeah, it felt camp, because we're not Lydia Dietz or Lisa Swallows. Keep wanting to call her Lisa Frankenstein, like, who are actually these like 3-dimensional characters who just happen to have darkness as part of themselves. It almost is a facsimile that, again, I was like, oh, cool. Well, we're about to have a laugh a riot here. This is going to be funny, high camp. And later, when it's like, no, this is very serious, David. This is a very serious movie for serious people. I was like, well, then why did you make them the jokiest joke goths ever?
One of Bridget's first lines is about the neighbor's dog who was killed by the Beast of Bailey Downs, and she just says, Baxter's fertilizer. It's so it's so silly. Like, it's just so, like, it's so tropey, and I enjoy that part of it, but again, like, we'll keep talking about it, but the tone is just kind of all over the place. Like, what kind of movie are we really watching here?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about the pact real quick?
Yes.
We have to eventually. What do you want to talk about it? Tal, you want to ask us if we made pacts as children, or
I'd love to know that.
Now?
Yeah, Marilee, tell me about all the pacts that you made with your sisters. No. I just think that the pact, it's so out by 16 or dead on the scene, but together forever. It's so morbid, and it's so over the top, and it's so campy. But I think it is one of the most important lines in the movie, because it's what motivates the sisters' behavior for like the entirety of the movie. Ginger is trying to live up to that, and Bridget is trying to get away from that. And I think it's also a little bit, I do think it really resonates with queer people as well, this idea that, like, I'm trapped in a suburban hell surrounded by straight people, and I want to either get the fuck out or be dead on the scene.
Get the fuck out.
Yeah. Either way. And I think that, again, that's really resonates with queer people. I for one, personally, I wasn't planning to, like, off myself or anything if I had to stay in my hometown, but I wanted to get the fuck out of my hometown, because it was the exact same feeling. Like, I'm trapped in a suburban hell. I'm surrounded by straight people. I want to get the fuck out of here. And when you're a teenager, that's absolutely the vibe, especially when you're queer. When you feel like that's all you, like, you have no one but maybe like one person that you're super close to, it totally makes sense. And I think the fact that they made this while they were 8 really fucked up, but I get it.
Yeah, and like they show that they have like scars on their hands from where, when they made this pact, they cut each other's initials onto their hands. intense, weird behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And
very
again,
codependent.
Yes.
In the hands of like Kevin Smith, high camp, this would be played up to like a 9, and we would be in that movie. Like there is a cut of this film that is that, right? Like
I think that would be a film that we all would have very much more enjoyed.
right.
Sure.
I do also just want to point out that, like, the reason why they go outside is because, again, they're gonna mess up Trina's dog and stuff, but the parents leave, they go to counseling, and the mom, Pamela, is very much like, stay in, guys, don't forget to, and that as they're leaving, the dad's like, what are you talking about? They stay in anyway. And then, of course, like, teenagers, that's the one night that they leave the house because they were told specifically that they wouldn't. I just love that. Very teen coded.
Yeah.
Forget about fear coded. That's teen coded.
Quickly, before we go into our spin-off podcast, let's keep talking about what comes next. So Bridget takes off running after Ginger and the Beast. Bridget does her best to fight it off, whacking it with her camera and inadvertently taking a picture of it. Ginger and Bridget are able to get away, but the Beast is in hot pursuit. The sisters run across a road, only for the Beast to be struck by a van driven by Sam the drug dealer, killing it. Ginger and Bridget make it home. Ginger is covered in blood, but when Bridget examines the wounds, she finds that Ginger's injuries have already begun to heal. In what seems to be the most realistic part of the movie, Bridget jumps to call 911 in reaction to the weirdest fucking thing possible, but Ginger stops her. If they're already healing, then there's no issue, right? Later that night, Bridget inspects her broken camera. She finds the photo she took of the Beast, and it is clearly something monstrous. In the next scene, Ginger and Bridget are buying tampons from an overwhelmingly huge shelf full of them. They run into Jason and his friends. Jason, seeing that Ginger is in crippling pain from her cramps, offers to get her high. Ginger agrees and leaves Bridget behind. Later on, while looking for Ginger, Bridget finds Sam's van and then sees the damage incurred by hitting the Beast. Bridget asks Sam what he hit. Sam takes a swig of alcohol and says in a dry tone that it was a lycanthrope. The two come close to a moment of shared realization, but Sam is distracted by the sound of stoners in his van. While Sam throws them out, Sheena arrives with her dog. The dog begins barking, and while Bridget drops her things, including her photo of the Beast, Ginger kicks the fucking dog. Trina, rightfully, is pissed.
Wow. There's so much to talk about here. But I will say, effective strategy of using the flash of a Polaroid camera to hide sort of a more low-budget action sequence where we've got a paw here, a snarl there. It's a very well-designed scene. The flashes were a lot for me in a dark room, so I would also just caution, like, I wasn't expecting such bright flashes. But the photo that gets taken from the Polaroid, it's genuinely terrifying. It's a really good way of raising the stakes.
Yeah, I think I love analog horror. Anything that looks like it was recorded on like a video camera on VHS tape or like a Polaroid photo. I think when used very well, it's extremely effective at making something scary. And I think that's part of it because it's a physical thing that you're holding in your hand of something that should not be. It's this impossible thing, and that makes it scary. I think the other thing, too, that is really scary about this particular segment is the tampons. I thought that the choice to show the tampons on the shelves as very overwhelming and just kind of looming over Ginger and Bridget, it was very clever. And David, I know you also wanted to talk about that as well.
Again, that was like high art. Like, I thought that we were really in this sort of like indie commentary about lycanthropy and going through puberty to the point of like menstruation, like was really brilliantly told in this way. Like, we're shooting the tampon aisle like it's a horror scene. Like, I expected Mrs. Bates to like erupt out of them and be like, "Hello, dearie," which is a Mrs. Doubtfire thing, but whatever.
Mrs. Bates or Mrs. Doubtfire, David?
I wouldn't have taken either, but it was a little, I don't know. I liked that. This is the thing, is like, I just told you that I wanted this movie to be camp, and yet here I am saying, like, it also would have been really cool if we had gone total art house on this and just been like, menstruation is werewolfing is menstruate. Like, buying tampons is just as scary as thinking about the wounds that you have that are healing up. I don't know, but like, it didn't deliver on that, unfortunately. So the scene is really, really good, and then it just doesn't pay off.
Yeah, that's fair. I just wanted to do a quick shout out because, again, like the werewolf effects in the way that they use them early on in the film really do something for me. I love the ways that they've artfully hidden stuff. Particularly like the werewolf corpse in the middle of the road. We never get like a particularly good look at it, but we kind of see it in silhouette, and like parts of it are still twitching as Sam is like looking at the thing that he just run over. And I thought that was so effective. I thought it looked really good.
Yeah, we touched on the uncanny valley when we were criticizing Ginger as the werewolf at the end of the movie, but I think the uncanny valley of the Beast of Bailey Downs really does serve it well. The things that we see of it, like the twitching on the road, it's very unnerving because it's clearly not something that's real, but it's acting real, and that fucks with our brains as primates. Like, I think that's really cool. So I totally am with you on that, Marilee.
Yeah,
and I love seeing the fucked up van. I think that also tells a really good story. So
it's that showing versus telling that works. Yeah. I wish more, horror movies would do that as opposed to doing like an exposition, vomit on the screen. I thought that was also really good.
Yeah.
When can I let my hating of hatred things let me talk about Sam? Because I think I hate Sam.
Let's talk about Sam.
Let's do it.
Why does he know that he hit a lycanthropy? Why?
Well, he got a pretty good look at the body. So he knew that it was a wolf-like thing that was way bigger than a wolf should be. So I think his insistence on calling it like a lycanthrope is like a lil high-arty. Like, it's very much giving I'm a teen boy, so I know everything.
Okay.
Which is a little infuriating, but that didn't seem that weird to me that he knows it's a werewolf. Some of the other stuff that he does later are pretty weird and inexcusable, but that one I kind of got.
Yeah,
okay.
Sam's character is a little bit all over the place. I appreciate the element of just like we it's okay for us to not know every single thing about a character. Like, he does seem to be a person with a past, especially based off of dialogue that Trina gets later in the movie. But I think it didn't play very well for me because I didn't know what his attitude was. On the one hand, he seems to be kind of a little bit conspiracy theorist about maybe he's like a big believer in werewolves. Maybe he's had run-ins with werewolves in the past. But at the same time, he's not taking it very seriously. And he doesn't believe it when Bridget initially brings it up. But at the same time, it also seems like he's trying to sort of deflect it, so he doesn't seem, like not tied to reality. Like, it's so strange the way they portrayed him. And at the end of the day, he seems kind of like he's just sort of there to fulfill the needs of the plot. And I think that's a little bit of a bummer in terms of character writing.
I wonder what he did with the body. I hadn't really thought about it before this exact second, but like, that's a human-sized wolf that just disappears from the narrative. So I wonder what he did with it.
Marilee, it is not the last time that this film has no object permanence. As soon as the camera is not showing something, it ceases to exist.
So true.
I'm so sorry. I will continue to ask those questions every time, even though I know I will never receive an answer.
The biggest one in Act 3 is a coming.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at school, Bridget confronts Ginger about her changes, only to discover that Ginger is now growing hair or fur from her scars. Ginger starts menstruating heavily, and Bridget demands they go to the school nurse to figure out what's going on. However, the school nurse is not an expert in lycanthropy, and the descriptions of Ginger's changes, heavy menstruation, hair growth, etc., mirror the changes that come about from puberty. The nurse ends up being useless, when it comes to werewolf lore. Back home, Pamela, who's Ginger and Bridget's mother, finds blood-stained underwear while doing laundry and realizes that Ginger has finally begun her period. At dinner, Pamela serves Ginger a very red and syrupy strawberry shortcake as a celebration, for fun. Ginger lashes out at her sister, accusing her of revealing secrets to their mother. Bridget retorts that she would never do such a thing and that Ginger has changed ever since the attack. Finally, Ginger says that Bridget is just jealous because Bridget always wanted to be her. Bridget denies that accusation and says that Ginger should do whatever she wants with her life.
Wow. First of all, thank you, Marilee. Thank you, Tyler, for adding in that the nurse is only useless when it comes to werewolf lore, because when I read in the notes, Tyler wrote, the nurse is useless. I was like, are you kidding me? Justice for Nurse Fairy.
I'm very happy you called that out, because that was definitely more of what I had in mind, because I ended up thinking that she fucking ruled as a nurse, but when it comes to werewolf stuff...
Yeah.
Not her wheelhouse.
She is doing exactly what we want a public school nurse to do, which is talk plainly and openly and not stigmatize Ginger's period. I loved all that. But yes, for the plot, does nothing. She does nothing. In fact, she probably hurts Ginger overall.
Yeah. But listen, she was really good about giving knowledge of menstruation. That was more than I got from my public health knowledge when I was in high school. So,
also, she gave the girls condoms. I think that to me was the most Canada's different.
Yeah.
Versus my public schooling education, which was, when I went to high school, I went to a Catholic school. Yay, religious trauma. So their whole thing was abstinence all the way. Mm-hmm. So of course I never learned about condoms, and they would never dream to hand out condoms at school. But I think also just in general, in the US, at the very least, they're definitely unwilling to do that or even acknowledge that contraceptives exist, especially if you're in the South. So I thought that was a very cool moment and definitely made me like the nurse quite a bit more.
It's not her fault that she's in a werewolf movie.
Exactly.
If that wasn't happening, otherwise A+. As it was, there definitely was something else for Ginger to tell you, and you weren't listening. You were just providing high quality public health services.
Yeah, she could have done a better job of reading the room.
Yeah.
But probably she has a lot of people coming in and asking about this kind of stuff all the time. So she just has a canned speech that she gives.
Right.
Her attitude about it, though, was very healthy. And I wish, more school nurses could...
Nobody told me that at the end of the flow, the discharge could look like brown or black.
Yeah.
That would have been nice, because I did think I was dying.
Yeah. Well, one day we'll talk Carrie and talk even more about menstruation, I assume. But right now, close to the topic, this cake that Pamela brings out, obviously we referenced it at the top of the episode. This cake is from a John Waters movie. I feel like Beverly Sutphin would bring this to the table to demonstrate a visual connection between what we just did and the dessert on the table. This is high camp.
It is.
You're right.
Absolutely. I busted out laughing when I saw that cake on the table. It's so gross. And I love that. I love that. And I think it's also... Yeah, go ahead, Marilee.
No. Tell me. I want to know.
I was going to bring up a new topic, so you go.
Okay. No, it's just speaking of gross and red syrup, I'm just saying, Pamela, honey, sweetheart, you should know better. You cannot put shout on period bloodstained underwear. You got to do other stuff to treat that. That's not coming out. It's not going to come out. That underwear is ruined.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or it's either a bleach or a total scrap situation there.
No, you could have gotten that off. There are other ways, but shout specifically, I'm just assuming there was no product placement, but that looked like a standard that is not going to be set up to deal with the enzymes in blood. So
I think also it's important to note, going back to the cake real quick, there's a scene later in the movie when Bridget and Pamela are talking, and Pamela brings Bridget a cake that is far less syrupy. It also seems to be made more of a caramel syrup, as opposed to a strawberry. So, we have that visual reminder that only Ginger is the Fitzgerald sister to have gone through her first period. Bridget is still waiting. for that to happen. And it's even addressed that they, the fact that neither of them had started menstruating earlier. Not that it was like cause for concern, but it was just something that the parents noted. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of this prolonged adolescence. And Bridget maybe is not going through her own physical coming of age, but she is going through an emotional and mental one as the tension between the sisters grows. Because there is, from this point on, a lot of tension between the two of them. And to me, this felt like the most realistic aspect of the movie. Even as an only child, I know that, when you're growing up, if you have a sibling who you are super, super tight with, if one of them is going through changes or anything else and the other one isn't, that's going to cause struggles and potential issues. I don't know. Marilee, when you were growing up, did you feel like you had tension with your siblings between, like, someone is growing older or someone is becoming more of an adult and I'm getting left behind?
I mean, there were a lot of tensions with my siblings when I was younger, but puberty had nothing to do with it. So, like, my older sister is 7 years older than I am. So when I was in elementary school, she was in high school. So, big gulf there. Much more if she was an adult who was also in the house, more to me than anything else. My brother and I were super close when we were really, really young, and then he started to go to kindergarten and found out that you weren't supposed to hang out with girls. So then he stopped being my friend. And my little sister and I didn't become close until, like, we were much, much older. Like, the two of us never got along because we always had to share a room, so we were, like, on top of each other constantly. There was never really any space for us. So again, completely different relationship.
Right.
So I can say from my own experience, no, that was not a thing, but I could see that being a lot of other kids' experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So moving on with the movie, we see Bridget using an ovulation calendar to track Ginger's werewolf progress. She also does research on werewolves and discovers evidence that Ginger's transformation is intensifying. It's a very funny scene. I think she just finds like a can of shaving cream and it's just covered in fur. It's like, God damn it, I really wish we had more bits like that in this movie. Just pick a lane, guys.
It's funny. It's very funny.
Meanwhile, Ginger is living life to the fullest. She's extroverted and confident, and she's now sporting 2 white streaks in her red hair. She finds Jason and animalistically makes out with him constantly. While Bridget walks away from Ginger and Jason making out, Sam spots her. Turns out Sam has been looking for her. He has the photo Bridget dropped earlier in the movie, and now he's wondering, what if the thing he ran into really was a lycanthrope? But that'd be crazy. Surely that couldn't be it. Bridget, however, admits that maybe that's exactly what Sam killed. She quickly leaves at the end of the exchange, without even telling Sam her name. That night, Bridget discovers something shocking. Ginger is growing a vestigial tail. Hilarious and creepy. It nailed the prompt so well, and I wish, again, we had a little bit more of that throughout the film. Bridget meets with Sam the next day to discuss how to cure lycanthropy. However, she pretends to be the one afflicted, not Ginger. They come up with a plan to use a silver earring due to silver's potential healing properties.
Wow. I loved, at the start of this, the combination between an ovulation calendar and this lunar tracking that's the metaphor for the werewolf, but I also just thought how it was shot. It was like these are 2 equally valid reference texts, one of which is this known 28 days, how the moon works, how that affects our cycle, and the other being like, so you want to learn about werewolves. And I thought that was really funny. Like, that's putting those next to each other as if they are both equally scientific is a very strong thesis point that I support for the film.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
I love the concept of, like, the fact that, like, the moon is tied to the cycle that Ginger is experiencing, but it's also the werewolf cycle. Like, it really does kind of write itself, and it's shocking that we didn't see the connection much earlier in our, pop culture history. But I think that's a delightfully camp moment, especially because it's very clearly an ovulation calendar. And I think it's also really funny that in one scene, Bridget is doing research by looking at a book of werewolf folklore, and in the next, she's watching an old horror movie of a werewolf. Also, the vestigial tail is really scary, but it's also really funny, especially because it kind of wags a little bit. And
it's good effect. Like it's unsettling because it's not meant to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of like her old horror movie research, I feel like this is a really great to point out that silver is very rarely associated with werewolves in like the classical lore. And most of the pop culture association with silver and werewolves comes very specifically from the movie The Wolfman, which I think is fun. And I just want to point out that silver might be a purifying force. It is so bad. It is a bad idea for having piercings with silver. Please don't do that.
So wait, do you know the story behind that? Because I saw your note here and I was like, wait, why? Because I don't know. I don't have any piercings.
The risk of tarnishing is really high. So like if you have jewelry with like made out of silver, especially particularly for earrings, you have to make sure that they are tarnish free and that like have a special, like you have to clean them regularly because while it's in the human body, like gunk gets on it and it's bad for the earrings. Ooh. So what you want to do for piercings is you want to either get like gold. Pure gold is like the standard, that's fine. If you have a nickel allergy, do not get white gold at all if you're trying to mimic a silver effect, because in the United States, white gold is made by adding nickel to gold, and that gives that color. If you are in Europe, white gold is mostly okay because they're adding platinum instead. But you don't want white gold if you have a nickel allergy. These days, a lot of earrings and stuff are made out of, like, steel or, like, the website where I get my earrings, for the most part, use implant-grade titanium, which is made for being in the human body, which is ideal. But you gotta be really careful about the kinds of metals you are putting inside your body because they can have different chemical reactions and it can really hurt you.
It's just interesting to me because then when I think about all this and I sort of unwrap a lot of the layers of like where this like notion that there's like a pure metal that will heal or combat maladies, like it actually seems like maybe gold bullet should have been the thing that we were saying this whole time, and yet somehow silver was the thing that rose. Because this is in like vampire tellings too. Is like you can bind a vampire with silver.
Well, silver is traditionally used in like historically has an association with purity. That's true. But gold is very soft, so you don't want your weapons or your dishware to be made out of gold because you'll drop it and it'll dent. So that's no good. But for inside the human body, gold is a lot more of a neutral metal.
Interesting.
That was fun. That was a fun little diversion.
Yeah, that's your metallurgy corner with Marilee. I hope you enjoyed.
I know I did. I found that very fascinating. Sam. I want to talk a little bit more about Sam. Sam.
Yes.
Yeah, listen. Sam. Sam is like, listen, I know everything about werewolves, and I'm ready to tell you.
Like, what the fuck? Like, is he taking it seriously? Is he not taking it seriously? Like, he seems to be like, I think it's a werewolf when we first meet him, and then he's just like, it's not a werewolf. Maybe it is a werewolf. And it's just like, dude, pick a lane. Like, this is why he feels more of just like a piece of the plot as opposed to like a real character. He's just kind of there for Bridget to learn more about lycanthropy from, and I thought that was annoying. I do think he has a line that seems so fucking out of the blue, but I think is actually kind of interesting for us to discuss. When Bridget confirms, like, you might have hit a werewolf, he says, well, that would explain the human circumcised dick and you running away from it. First of all, it's strange and funny. It's campy. It's a campy line. But I think it's also a little bit relevant to a queer reading of this movie. I think, first of all, we have confirmation that the Beast of Bailey Downs was a male. But the way Sam phrases it, that it's something that she ran away from, and Bridget's unwillingness to really engage with any person of the opposite sex in a man and woman attraction. I think there's definitely something queer there. I think it's a little bit of Bridget has not gone through her puberty, so technically she's still she's still a child, quote unquote. It's also the fact that like a lot of people think that Bridget is trying to get with Sam, or Sam is trying to get with her, or Bridget wants to be Ginger because Ginger's having sex with people. But Bridget seems completely uninterested in any of that throughout the entirety of the movie. And even later on, when people are trying to say that, you know, Sam and Bridget, maybe there's something going on between the two of them, and Ginger like tries to get with Sam, Bridget's whole focus that entire time is saving Ginger. So Ginger tries to have sex with Sam, and instead of Bridget being like, how dare you get with my boyfriend, she's just more concerned about Ginger. And I think that there's definitely something queer there. Not necessarily saying that she's a lesbian just right out of the gate, although I think that's definitely a good reading to apply, or a reasonable reading to apply, but there's also some asexuality there that you could discuss, aromanticism, something that maybe was not originally intended, but as is so often the case with our queer theories and our queer readings into things, it's a matter of what it is that we can make out of the actual material that we're looking at. And I think that's definitely something that is worth considering, especially just because I know in the sequel, the queer aspect is much more heavy-handed.
I will say, I didn't think about this line when it was said. I just sort of let it roll off me. But now that we've had discussion about it, I don't know that if I hit something with my vehicle, I would go to look at its genitals. But Sam does. Sam is very interested in the genitals of the creature that he hit. And so maybe there's a queer reading there too, Tyler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Bridget returns to school to find Ginger and Jason still making out. She tries to talk to Ginger, but Ginger won't talk to her unless she apologizes. Ginger and Jason get in Jason's car in spite of Bridget yelling loud enough for everyone around to hear that Ginger is ovulating. Really working at that calendar, my girl. Trina and her friends, who have been hanging out nearby, burst out laughing while Jason and Ginger drive away. We return to the Fitzgerald home, where Pamela tries to tell Bridget to be more understanding of Ginger. After all, her time to grow up will come. Bridget looks horrified. Meanwhile, Ginger and Jason are getting hot and heavy in the back of the car. That car is not big enough for sexual activity. Find a bed. Ginger is growing even more violent, and Jason wants to slow down, but she takes control, her spine flexing under her skin as she bites Jason and begins to have sex with him. Later that night, Ginger returns home covered in blood, throwing up in the toilet. Ginger admits to Bridget that her desire for sex is really a desire to rip and tear everything to pieces. Fearing Ginger has killed Jason, Bridget asks where he is, to which Ginger says next door. Bridget runs to investigate and sees that Ginger has actually killed the neighbor's dog. Bridget pierces Ginger's belly button with a silver earring. And while Ginger is in pain during the procedure, she admits that she feels wicked. She smiles, revealing a set of fangs.
So, the cure, quote unquote, the silver, the purifying silver. This whole piercing scene, I think, is really interesting. I definitely like what you brought up in here, David, about this interpretation as queer. Can you talk to us more about that?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty on the nose or on the snout queer reading. Yeah, there we go. That anything that is like, this will fix you, and then if it doesn't change you from being queer, like that, I don't know. There's something there about wanting to fix or save someone, maybe even in spite of them losing part of their identity. Now, don't be wrong. If one of you was about to become a werewolf and I had the means to stop it, I would try to administer those means, unless we had actively talked about this at some point in time and that you were like, I really want to be a werewolf. But I do, I don't know. It's hard for me not to look at this and be like, oh, she's trying to cure her sister of being queer.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's such a great point, especially because later in the movie we talk a little bit more about what curing someone could mean. But I think that it's just interesting that the curing is clearly a painful process. Ginger is going through it, and it just makes her worse. It intensifies the transformation. Suddenly Ginger is talking about how she feels wicked and now she's got fangs. Like this idea that you're trying to repress or cure someone, creating something monstrous out of that's absolutely queer. That's absolutely queer.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah. Well, and no freakier boy in the bedroom than a boy who's gone through conversion therapy. It will just it sets some meter on 11 for you.
For sure.
When you survive a harrowing experience like that.
But like speaking of boys, Ginger makes that point about like I thought I wanted sex, but actually I just want to rip and tear. I think it's also cool that Ginger is really only ripping and tearing into boys that are really shitty. Jason and his buds are super fucking annoying, and Jason himself is just kind of portrayed as being just an annoying teenage douchebag. So the fact that Ginger is doing it to him, it's a little bit karmic. You know, there's some justice in that, that Ginger is getting her revenge on him. But I think it's also kind of neat that she's purposely going after someone who's a bit of an asshole. Like we've talked about how our queer villains so far have been ripping and tearing against the heteronormative ideology here. I think you could absolutely read that into this, that Ginger is once again an ally, or we once again have a monster that's an ally to the queer community or is a representative of the queer community, because the heterosexual sex that she has, it's monstrous and it's violent. And Jason is not into it until the next day. It turns out he was super into it. So I think, but it's going to have repercussions for what happens. So I think you could definitely read into just this idea that like Ginger's taking apart a heteronormative ideology in place. But obviously there's of course a little more to it as Ginger's transformation continues.
Yeah. I was also really stricken by this little narrative that she provides, that she misinterprets the idea of sex as something else, and for her it's violence, because that's what the wolf is asking her. But like I've misinterpreted sex as a way to like get attention or get someone to pay for dinner or like whatever. It's not what I actually want. What I wanted was those other outcomes, and like I don't know. I just found that very resonant. I haven't like ripped dogs apart or anything. Just
let's keep it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did really like the dog misdirect particularly, because I thought it really worked. I was expecting that there could be like a dead Jason that they had to deal with, but no, just like the neighbor's dog, which is like up until that point been a bit of a thing that they keep talking about, like how annoying this dog is constantly barking.
Yeah.
Shut up, Norman.
Say, yeah, exactly. Very Norma Bates of them.
Very Norma Bates of them. Yes.
Yeah. I also really loved the fangs. I thought that Ginger's fangs particularly looked really good and very natural in her.
Yeah. I didn't like pause and enhance. I didn't go all like 90s X-Files on this, but it felt like a practical, like it felt like a denture. That she had in, and they looked really good.
I don't know even if it was like a denture or like specifically tooth caps on her, because for the rest of the movie, Ginger has a really natural time of talking, and whenever like Tyler gets his fangs, you can tell that he's not as comfortable talking.
Do you mean Jason?
Them. Did I? Yes.
You said
Did
Tyler.
I say the wrong thing?
Do I have fangs?
God.
Am I turning into a werewolf?
No.
It's happening. I told you I would stop it. Here I am, like failing as a friend.
Yeah. No, listen, there are so many guy names in this film. I can only keep so many of them in.
Well, and I'll tell you, Jason and Sam, I have to think about it every time I'm saying them, is these two dudes, and I am more attracted to Jason because he rolled up his jeans. And that's all it takes for me. This, I will say, really solid late 90s, early 2000s fashion on every single character that's going on here.
Oh, for sure.
Outside of the like goth parody that we've got the main characters in.
Yeah. Tyler, I'm very sorry I did that to you.
It's okay.
But listen, if you do want to have fangs, I would highly recommend little caps on the tooth instead of full dentures, because you'll have an easier time talking.
Yeah, and I want to have like a Buffy vampire situation where I just sound like I'm talking with my mouth full. So yeah, definitely. I also think that the fangs that Ginger has in the movie, while I was watching, I was thinking to myself like, how the fuck is no one noticing this? Like,
right?
The fangs are there. She's got claws. Like, her nails are turning into talons. Like, no one's noticing this. And I think that's probably, like, if you wanted to be charitable, you could read into that as being, like, they're only looking at Ginger for her sexual components, which are unchanged for the majority of the movie. And so they're going to ignore her teeth. They're going to ignore her claws. But I think on the other hand, it's also just kind of like, they didn't think about that in the movie while they were writing the script. So, yeah, I think
it could just be a commentary on how no one actually pays attention to what's going on with teen girls.
That's also true, too. I think that's also an excellent point.
I like that.
Again, I feel like that's
better.
like a little bit of a charitable reading to the movie, but hell, we'll roll with it.
Yeah. The next day, Bridget is taping Ginger's tail, now much longer, to her thigh before the two of them go to play field hockey. Jason meets with his friends on the bleacher, looking worse for wear. He brags about having sex with Ginger, but his buddies laugh at the blood stain growing on his pants, so Jason leaves in a huff. Sam tries to get Bridget's attention, which makes both Ginger and Trina jealous for different reasons. Sam has another werewolf cure idea, but Bridget sends him away for being on drugs on school property. Ginger and Bridget begin playing field hockey. Trina tackles Bridget, knocking her over. Ginger loses her shit and viciously attacks Trina. In the next scene, we see Jason using a urinal. His urine turns to blood and he screams in pain and fear. Afterwards, Bridget runs into Jason as he's limping through the halls, covering the bloodstain on his pants and claiming his pen exploded. Bridget begins to put it together, and in the next scene with Ginger, she outright says that Ginger gave lycanthropy to him via unprotected sex. Ginger, unconcerned.
Can't be bothered. Moisturized in her lane.
Bridget meets Sam with Ginger in tow. Ginger, who had promised to behave, instead belittles Sam as a sex fiend. Meanwhile, Bridget and Sam try to figure out their next move. Sam suggests monkshood, which could work, but there's a problem. It only grows in the spring, and it's currently October. Ginger thinks the whole thing is bullshit. She accuses Sam of trying to get into Bridget's pants when Bridget is only 15. She even lies and says that it's Bridget growing the tail. Bridget kicks Ginger out of Sam's greenhouse.
Again, there are parts to this that I absolutely loved. It's not a far reach to infer a trans reading of this narrative when someone is going through a change, say puberty, and is having dysphoria about themselves that they are trying to conceal through binding or other. This is also where we get the scene where Ginger is like shaving her legs and it's just like tons of leg hair. She's trying to almost do some gender affirming work to like be the person that she meant to be and not this werewolf. And I think that, again, a nice off-the-shelf queer reading of this film.
100%. And listen, I know that we're going to talk a lot about the STI reading of what's going on with Jason, but I do want to point out that he's talking very much about how his back hurts in the same way that Ginger was in the early parts of the film, and then he pees blood, and like he keeps talking about how his red pen exploded, and I just think that it's very much right there, to me at least, to see of a reading that he's menstruating.
Yes.
Like, he's got the curse. Personally, I know that we talked a lot throughout this episode about how, like, right there and on the nose, like, the 28-day cycle is, and I'm constantly surprised that a lot of the time, every time we see werewolves in any kind of fantasy media, it's always like a group of guys who are all posturing together, like these alpha lumberjack dudes, when to me I just see like this really natural association, like in general but also specifically in this film, between like the lunar cycle of it all and femininity. And not to be gender essentialist and saying that you have to have a period to be a woman, but like I just think that that's a really unexplored topic.
I agree.
Well, I love the idea of turning a common experience that I have to assume that women and folks who have periods have gone through, which is that when you're unprepared and you bleed out and that can be seen on your pants, it is very embarrassing to be in public like that because of how we've cultured menstruation. And so you hide it or make an excuse from it. And I think it's delightful to watch a male associated character go through that experience that is not directed the right way for men throughout the history of teen films. I just thought really, really smart choice. And again, from a different movie than sometimes we're watching.
Yeah, I'm totally in love with that interpretation as well. You know, I think the STI analogy definitely is the thing that jumps out the most immediately. And I think perhaps that was the intention with when it was originally written in 1999, 2000. I do think that it's absolutely still valid. I think clearly the fact that Bridget emphasizes that Ginger gave Jason lycanthropy through unprotected sex, like it's all spelled out right there, that it's interpreted to be as an STI, especially because Jason's physical state diminishes over time, whereas Ginger gets hotter, Jason gets uglier. But I think it's also like true that like it's this idea of the curse and that she gave him the curse, and they refer to menstruation earlier in the movie as the curse. Like it's all definitely all there. And I really am in love with this idea that Jason is experiencing some sort of gender dysphoria, or that there is an element of a trans view when we look at what Jason is going through. I think that's really cool, and I think that's something that as queer people, you know, it's good to see that and to find that and to say like, hey, this is valid and we have reasons to believe that. How do we feel about Ginger and Bridget's relationship at this point? Because there's definitely now a turn with how Ginger sees and acts towards Bridget that is different from the beginning of the movie.
100%.
I'm kind of excited by it, Tyler. I think it's characterization. I don't love it. I think I'm not like happy about it. And there's some things that Ginger says that I'm like particularly on edge about. But I like the idea that as the wolf becomes more of who Ginger is, she stops being Bridget's sister. And I think that is an exciting story to tell, that when something takes over you and you become an adult or you become queer, there's distance that is naturally created from things that used to be part of your life. So I think that's exciting for an us reason. I also think that it's probably the most interesting part of the plot for me here in this part of the movie.
Yep, I'm inclined to agree with that too. I think that they definitely emphasize this distance, and as you said, this less sisterly bond that continues throughout the movie as Ginger becomes more wolfish. I think it does lean into something queer, but in a very sort of monstrous queer sort of way, in a derogatory tone, because I think that it kind of borders a little bit on the incestuous at times. Not necessarily that Ginger is feeling sexual attraction to Bridget, but I think it's an aspect of the control that she wants to exercise over Bridget. We already know that Bridget entered into this pact at 8 years old because Ginger made her do it. We see that is a continuing force throughout the movie, but now it's becoming much more overt. And I think that this dominating mentality that Ginger is growing into extends toward Bridget in every sort of way that control can be exercised. And I think that includes a sexual component. And again, I think there's a reading towards that as we go further into the movie. But I think that's something to kind of keep in mind, that although we can definitely see Ginger as being this, you know, a queer reading, that doesn't always mean that the queer reading makes for a morally positive character.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which I'm totally fine with. I've said it before. I will say it again. I do support women's wrongs.
Yeah.
So,
oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we talked about killing heterosexuals a couple episodes ago. So just
absolutely. And I think, but it's different because it's like, I feel like in horror movies, we're so used to the monster killing someone that it's just like, whatever, that's bound to happen. I think it's more horrifying to see it turned towards a sister. And now there's a familial tension as well that is probably one of the scariest aspects that comes up in horror movies or in horror stories, is what is the horror that is within the family, you know? And I think that creates a lot more drama, and it makes for more interesting characters as well.
Well, I know it's a me thing, but the Ginger's weaponizing of Bridget's childhood and the interest others have in her being purely sexual, almost to say that everyone surrounding her is a pedophile. That plays different for me now, and it gives me like real toxic in the community vibes. I think that policing child welfare is like that's a hot button thing for me, because actually protecting children and using children as political protection are two vastly different things. And I think they get a little close together, but they actually are very, very separate topics.
For sure.
Yeah, that's a really great poll.
So that night, Trina confronts Bridget at the Fitzgerald home. Ginger attacks Trina and mentally tortures her. Bridget tries to defuse the situation, but Trina accidentally falls and hits her head on a kitchen countertop, killing her instantly. Just then, the sisters hear the garage door open. The parents are home. They quickly stash Trina in a freezer, a fucking freezer, and make the whole thing look like another morbid photo project. The parents buy it. God love them. Later, the sisters break Trina's corpse out of the freezer, quite literally. They end up dropping 2 of Trina's fingers in the process and bury Trina in a backyard shed. Bridget tells Ginger that from this point on, Ginger needs to lay low. The next day, news about Trina's disappearance spreads. Bridget forges a sick note saying that Ginger can't come to school. When she goes to deliver it, she's intercepted by a grotesque, animalistic Jason. Jason, unaware that he's turning into a werewolf, demands to know what's happening to him. Before things take a turn for the worse, the janitor finds him. Jason leaves the scene, and Bridget thanks the janitor before she does the same.
I was so... How did Trina get here? She just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's fine. She needed to die. She did need to die. I'm very happy about Trina's death, but was shocked she was there. I was like, are we in Trina's house? I don't know. I don't go over to my enemies' homes very often, but here she was.
Yeah, she was looking for her dog, I think it was said.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were talking about kidnapping her dog earlier, and, But Jason says that he killed a dog also, so I don't know what exactly happened to Trina's dog. While we are talking about Trina, I do want to note that the knife that she grabs in the kitchen is a bread knife. Baby, that's not going to do any good.
Listen.
These are the things that I notice.
It's important, though.
Yeah.
I think also it's kind of interesting that, I think it's interesting, David, that you say that Trina needed to die. I think she was a shitty teenager, but when she's talking to Bridget about Sam...
That's fair.
She sounds very almost protective of Bridget, that maybe Trina has been hurt by Sam in the past. Again, this is kind of like a little bit of telling, not showing. Sam, for all we know, seems like a pretty normal person. He deals drugs and he knows a lot about werewolves, but otherwise he seems pretty chill. However, based off of what Trina says, it sounds like Sam might be a little bit of a shitty boyfriend or just someone that you don't want to mess with because he's just going to pick you up and drop you. And I thought that was a nice bit of humanizing Trina right before she dies and adds a little bit of tragedy to it. But at the same time, she was mean.
She was mean.
She was a bully.
Her hair was really big, and that's where she kept all her secrets.
Yeah,
she had to go. Sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't protect you up against the teenager's worst enemy, the kitchen countertop. One day you all will drag me into Scream, and we'll have to talk more about countertop related deaths. But why don't we have foam in our kitchens? This is my question here.
I thought it was really interesting that Jason's version of werewolfism looks so much more like an STI than Ginger's transformation. Do we think that it was based in the infection vector, or what's going on with that? Why does his look make him look so messed up and act so much different than what's going on with Ginger?
It's a great question, Marilee, and I like the sort of hypothesis that maybe it is because it was sexually transmitted that it has to look grosser, or because he's a guy it has to look less appealing than hers. And again, that's maybe the movie trying to tell us something this is okay when it happens to women, it's not okay when it happens to men, or something. I don't know. There is something there, because it does look very different on Jason than it looks on Ginger. And I guess this is when Tyler and I fight, because I think Jason looks really hot.
Jason is covered in acne and sweaty and red.
Well, no.
And
it's not acne though, because I think it's little wounds, because Ginger bit him in little places during sex, and so fur's growing out of his face.
Because it looked like whiteheads from zits. So I thought it was
I think it was fur.
Because
there are so many ways you can make makeup look, though. So I think both of these interpretations are fine.
True.
Yeah.
I think if we're leaning into this idea that it's again a metaphor for puberty, when Jason experiences it, it's like his puberty is going into overdrive. He's growing hair in weird places. He's getting a lot of acne. He looks funny.
Yeah.
It's all of like the worst possible fears that a teenage boy could have about their appearance, and Jason has all of them. And so that's why I interpreted those little wounds on his face as being acne, because I thought that's what, was going on. And again, I am in agreement with the idea that like they might have been trying to make it seem like puberty for the boys and the werewolf of it all is much more unappealing for a boy than it is for a girl. So they're having like a little fun there, because I think typically we think it's the opposite. The monstrous woman is very unappealing and unattractive, but like the monster boy, he's a monster. He's a monster to be fucked by all the monster fuckers out there. But not really in this case.
Yeah, and I agree with the thesis of the film. I agree with what you're putting down. It's just me who's wired differently. I think acne and acne scars are kind of hot, and Jason's doing it for me with the delivery of that, and I say, good for you, buddy. Good for you.
David, no judgment at all. Like,
it's an aesthetic that works for me. Yeah.
I just want to real quick say justice for the janitor, because the way that he interrupts things, like, really, the film could have gotten a lot darker immediately. Yeah. But then he goes in there and he's like, excuse me, what's going on here? And like some messed up stuff happens to him later, and Bridget says some not so nice things about him.
Yeah.
I just thought he was a delight. I thought he was a lovely man who's just doing his best.
I agree. Just doing his best. I guess we should kind of talk about that too, that the way this scene is shot and how things go for Bridget in this scene, she's clearly in a state of danger, and there is a boy there who can, potentially overpower her. It definitely could have gotten a lot worse. I think, it's a willingness to be kind of real with that moment and allude to a danger that could happen in a very different sort of movie. And it's uncomfortable. I think it might be one of the scariest moments in the movie, because I feel real terror for Bridget. There's because it feels more real, it feels more human.
I think I would buy that more, Tyler, if that had been the movie the whole time. But because sometimes I'm also watching Scary Movie 3 when I'm watching Ginger Snaps, like, it just equally could have been like a cutaway gag. And that's why, if you're going to go to a dark place like this, like a possible sexual assault, you need to be well grounded in that theme throughout your movie. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why it didn't have the level of terror that you're expressing, because it's just too much camp if you're going to go that direction.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like a problem that I have with the movie is exactly that. What is the tone here? Like, I did feel, fear in that moment, because I don't know, that's just where my brain went and my emotional reaction to that. But I think it's also just a sign that this movie does not seem to know what it wants to do tonally. Like, there's an implication there, but the implication could be explored more in a movie that had maybe more sensitivity to that sort of thing. But instead, I think it's just kind of played up a little bit as something that could happen in that moment. It's scary. It's a little bit real, but ultimately it's toothless.
At dinner, Pamela confronts the sisters about Ginger not going to school. Ginger storms off while Pamela asks Bridget what's going on. Bridget notices monkshood flowers on the table. Turns out you can just buy them at the craft store. When Bridget goes to tell Ginger the good news, she finds Ginger trying to cut off her tail in fear. Bridget and Ginger hug in a moment of shared vulnerability. However, while Ginger sleeps, Bridget clutches a baseball bat wide awake. It's Halloween. While Ginger uses the bathroom, Bridget locks her in. Bridget tells Ginger that this is for Ginger's own good. Ginger bashes at the door, both pissed off and hurt by Bridget's actions. Bridget stashes the knife that Ginger was using the night before and rushes off to Sam with monk's hood in hand. Sam is unsure if the monk's hood will work, but assumes that injecting it will cure Ginger. He creates a serum that he uses to fill a syringe. However, Sam warns Bridget, "You may kill her trying to save her." Bridget leaves with the syringe, but as she's heading home, she comes across Jason harassing a costume child. Bridget injects Jason with the syringe, which cures him without killing him. When Bridget gets home to gather more monkshood and tell Ginger the good news, she discovers that Ginger has escaped. Dun dun dun.
Wow. If you're looking for a queer reading that Michael's craft saves the day, that's all the queer reading that you need.
That's all you
truly.
need, baby.
That's all you need.
I was honestly pretty pissed off when we found out that monkshood is just sold at the fucking craft store. Because they brought up, it seemed like a very serious issue that Sam and Bridget ran into, that, oh shit, monkshood only grows in the spring. What the fuck are we going to do? And then it just so happens that they sell it, and Bridget just so happens to see it on the table because Pamela just so happened to buy it because, you know, so many things had to happen that are so overly convenient that it felt so unearned. And that really pissed me off that was the case. Yeah, although I do love the idea that Michael's craft saved the day, so yay, queer people.
Well, and not to mention that Sam is like fucking Walter White up in here, and he's like, I can make a serum out of this thing that you bought at a craft shop. Don't worry about it. It's so hard. That part of it is so hard to me, and I hate Sam so much
also,
because of shit like that.
Listen, I don't know anything about crafting serums or anything like that, but I feel like directly injecting isopropyl alcohol into someone, even if it's mixed with a plant, is a really bad idea, right? Like, you probably shouldn't be doing that. Like, I figured, water might have been, like, a better vector, because we already have water in our bodies, but,
I can't give you a biochemistry answer for everything. I don't know about that one.
Damn it, Marilee. I put you through those chemistry courses for a reason.
I'm so sorry. I failed you guys. I'll be better next time. I will say that he's essentially... without the isopropyl alcohol of it all, he just he makes a tea. Basically, he makes he infuses it into some water, heats it so that the infusal, can really settle. And then they inject that in her. I feel like they didn't have to make a big deal out of that.
Right.
Yeah.
But we do. We do make a big deal. We bought some chemistry stuff from the local thrift shop, and we are going to show it on camera. Liquids are fun to film. I've dated plenty of people in film programs. I get it. They film light going through liquids. It's fun. I love a DP who likes to go back to their roots. But yikes, it's just, this whole thing is so unnecessary. You should just be like, I found a magic cure in my plot hole of things that I keep to solve the plot, and don't even worry about it, because that's what it is. But here's the thing. All that aside, you do get this really good line of, you may kill her trying to save her, which is this whole coming of age queer awakening. Wanting to save someone is almost implicitly a harmful act when we're talking about queer identity.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I really love that reading. I think that's fantastic.
Unfortunately, it has to live in all this other bullshit, Marilee.
I just want to do a quick point out that the little kid that Jason is bothering is dressed up as a dog for Halloween. What is it about this strain of werewolfism in dogs? Because there's clearly something here. I don't know what they're putting down, but I am seeing enough of something together that there is a line. I don't know what it's connected to, but it's certainly present.
I think if I really want... Okay. Oh boy. I'm putting on the English major hat. If you really want to get...
I love that hat.
If you really want to get deep into it, it could be this idea that dogs have been trained over the centuries, over the millennia, to be... what's the word? When you train an animal to live in your house.
Domesticated.
Yes, thank you. These are animals that had been domesticated over the millennia by humans, and so they're going to look at a wolf, which is a wild beast that is unbound by rules, can do whatever the fuck it wants, especially a werewolf, which is that to the nth degree, and is going to react negatively to that the same way that a wolf would. So I think there could be a connection between the dog as a representation of civilized society, the thing that should be the friend to other humans. It's going to follow the rules that society has dictated for it, whereas the werewolf is the complete opposite of that thing, and it's freedom and liberty and having sex with anyone and everything that you can find, and ripping and tearing and enjoying all the blood and the gore and the viscera at all, because you're free and you're on your own and you're independent. blah. And so the werewolf and the dog don't like that. They don't get along. And so I'm going to take off my English major hat and throw it back into the closet.
No, that was perfect. I loved that. Tyler. That is exactly where I was hoping you would take that.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Yeah, because I do wonder why we don't have werewolf stories where you become like part Pomeranian. It's always back to the primal. It's always back to the wolf of it all.
Watch The Howling and you'll find out.
Oh, really? Okay, thank you. Okay, great.
Add it to the list. But yeah, I think just going way, way back, the idea of you may kill her trying to save her, I think that works on so many different levels. Of course, there's the literal, that monkshood is toxic, but also that it's killing the werewolf part of Ginger. And the werewolf allegory has been about womanhood and adulthood and owning your sexuality and willingness to be violent. And killing that kills Ginger. It kills who she is, because that is who Ginger is now. And of course, if we're extending that to our queer reading, which we always do, that's the whole point of our podcast. Absolutely, David. Exactly what you said. Like, you're killing this person while trying to kill them. And unfortunately, that is all too real when it comes to queer youth, like sending people away to conversion camps, trying to repress that side of themselves. It's a horrible reality that people experience. And I think that line is so important. And I think it's just as important as the oath that the girls make at the beginning of the movie. It's the thing that motivates everything that's going to happen from this point on.
Yes, but in a completely separate movie, Jason is standing there with a syringe out of his neck being like, I am cured, time to go away. Then that's a wrap on Jason.
I have to go do something, and then just sort of rushes away awkwardly, like, what the fuck? And also the fact that he was bullying a child, like, I think it's also kind of like a little bit more of like making fun of a boy going through puberty and how werewolfism, lycanthropy, as like when it affects a man, is very different than when it affects a woman, and the woman is much more frightening than the man, and so on and so forth. It's just, what kind of movie we're watching here, folks? Like, come on, pick a lane.
But goodbye, Jason. I will sag some jeans in your honor.
Oh boy.
While Bridget was with Sam, Ginger went to school, where Mr. Wayne, the guidance counselor and teacher, intercepted her and told her to go to his office. Bridget goes to school and discovers a horrific scene. Ginger has viciously killed Mr. Wayne. Her changes have also gotten a lot more animalistic. Her left eye is blue, and her features are growing more wolf-like. Bridget tells Ginger they'll have to wait till everyone's gone, and then they can dispose of the body. While they wait, the scene shifts, and Pamela and the girl's father, Henry, I can't believe you even put this name in the notes because he's such a non-character, are gardening. Henry picks up Trina's fingers and is horrified, but Pamela says, oh, these are just props with the girl's photo shoots, and she takes them inside. But she knows something, and she puts them in a Tupperware container instead. We return to Ginger and Bridget after school. Bridget tells Ginger to stay put while she finds cleaning supplies for all the blood that has been erupted out of Mr. Wayne. Good luck. Unfortunately, while Ginger is licking blood off her claws, the janitor unlocks the door to the office and encounters Ginger. Bridget returns to find the poor janitor crawling away, gravely injured. While Bridget yells at Ginger to stop, Ginger says she didn't like the way that he was looking at you. She tosses the janitor around until he crashes into a glass fire hose container. Bridget is horrified, but suddenly the janitor gasps. He's not dead. Bridget says that Ginger infected him and begs Ginger to let her call for help. Instead, Ginger guts the janitor, killing him. Ginger begins telling Bridget how good it feels to kill. She says, it's like touching yourself. You know every move. Right on the fucking dot. And after, you see fucking fireworks. Supernovas. I'm a goddamn force of nature. I feel like I could do just about anything. She leans in close to Bridget and says, you know, we're almost not even related anymore. Ginger tries to tempt her sister into becoming a werewolf, wanting to exchange juices, and describes how good doing so would feel, similar to their pact from childhood. Bridget says she'd rather be dead. Ginger counters that she said that all those years ago, that she would die for Bridget, but Bridget reminds her that Ginger said she'd die with her sister because there was nothing better to do. Ginger, feeling hurt and betrayed, kicks Bridget and leaves, telling her that she'll say hi to Sam for her.
I think this whole bit that Ginger has talking about how killing feels like touching yourself, and it's interesting because earlier she's describing the desire for sex as actually it's ripping and tearing, but here ripping and tearing feels like self-pleasure, and I think that's kind of interesting. Yeah. I don't know too much what to make of it that Ginger doesn't want to have sex with a man and she would rather just masturbate to get those feelings out there, and she would rather kill, but she's comparing it to masturbation as opposed to having sex.
Yeah.
I don't know too much of what to make of that. I think it's really fascinating, and I think it's really kind of like a reclamation of her sexuality, saying she doesn't need a man. Maybe she can do it all herself. But then I think the fact that she says almost immediately afterwards that it's almost like she and Bridget are not even related anymore. That to me is really leaning to the incestuous aspect I discussed earlier. It's not necessarily that Ginger is feeling sexual attraction to Bridget, but the idea of dominating or controlling Bridget in a way, including in a sexual way, is still exercising that control over her and the desire to dominate her. And Bridget is not having it, which is fantastic. I love that for Bridget. But it is showing how these power dynamics between these two sisters, which went from codependent to now much more imbalanced, it's very fucked. It's a very fucked situation to be in.
100%.
We get another beat of Ginger weaponizing Bridget's youth and those around her. And again, I just have to say, like, I hate that. And per Marilee's point earlier, justice for this janitor. He did nothing wrong. He was just doing his job. Probably not getting paid very much for it. And yet he was killed. And I hate that for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I know that puberty is the monster here. Like, that's the metaphor. That's the monster. But I do think it's really interesting how the further along in her transformation, the more everything Ginger says and does has sexual undertones.
Absolutely.
And like that's it's not, a perfect metaphor for adulthood, but I do think it's worth pointing out.
I think in a different movie it would be interesting to see it as like Ginger is claiming her sexuality and it's portrayed as a very good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But in this movie, I don't know, it feels a little bit like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. Like we are kind of like, I think the crux of the movie, that werewolf, that lycanthropy and going through puberty and menstruating for the first time and so on and so forth growing up, they're the same thing. And one is inevitable and the other is just, something that happens. But ultimately, like, Ginger didn't ask for any of this to happen. It happens. It's inevitable. That's kind of just like something that we have to accept as natural and okay, because it is natural. I think by showing that Ginger is taking that and making it more monstrous, I don't know what they're trying to say here. Like if you go too far into adulthood, or if you go too far into owning your sexuality, you become a monster. But at the same time, we're trying to be sympathetic because the whole werewolf thing is an allegory for bodily changes from puberty. It's weird and it's kind of messy, and I feel like there's no real cohesion with what they're trying to say.
Yeah. That just seems to be actually the output of this film is confusion.
Yeah.
I think from an artistic level, and it doesn't stop it from being fun and scenes being very effective. But, and this monologue that Ginger gives is very good. And it is about self-pleasure. And I love a monologue about self-pleasure. We just covered it in Lisa Frankenstein, but this is totally different because of the context that it lives in, which is just chaos.
Yeah, the tone it's everywhere. We return to Pamela, who is in the shed digging, eventually finding Trina's body. She gasps in horror before the scene shifts to Bridget running down the street. The van stops. It's Pamela, somehow teleports. Bridget tells her that she's going to the county greenhouse where Sam lives and is hosting a party. They drive to the greenhouse, and Pamela tells her that she's willing to burn down their house and ditch Henry as long as she has her daughters. Wow. Meanwhile,
Queen.
Ginger
Just
joins
Queen.
the party.
Can we just take a moment and like enjoy Pamela, because Queen.
Yeah.
For real.
Incredible. Just that
she clearly like went to that greenhouse in the backyard specifically. She like found the fingers and was like, I have a suspicion what I will find. Finds the body and then is immediately like, well, time to blow up my house and abandon everything that happens here so that we can go off and live someplace else instead. Queen behavior. Love her.
Queen behavior. I think if we explore the movie like more as kind of like, it's good that Ginger is a werewolf, it's bad that Ginger's a werewolf, it's good that Bridget is trying to, grow out of her sister's shadow. They're growing up in general, and Pamela, who's very emphatic about how going through your menstrual cycle is a good thing, she then pivots at the end here and says, like, I'm willing to burn down the house because I can't lose my babies.
Interesting. See, I almost looked at it as, I'm willing to burn down the house so that you can be the adult and queer person that you are because you're a werewolf. And I read it more as protective, not protective of them as infants, but protective of them as like a mother of adult children.
And I absolutely
and sort of accepting this.
am inclined to agree with that too. That's the reading that I initially took, but I'm just kind of thinking about it. Like, the deliberate word choice that they made for Pamela was that she said that, like, no one can take my babies from me.
Yeah.
I think
that's a good point.
Well, so the thing about that I think is interesting is my babies from me is a deeply possessive thing to be saying. And I like that whole conversation that they have, to me, very much reads like, this is where the girls got it from. Like that she doesn't have a codependent relationship with Henry, who, to be clear, I kept thinking of as Dale, from Lisa Frankenstein.
Right,
he's the same wet blanket we used as father.
Yeah.
But she has a very, control, like, these are her kids, possessive, and she's not gonna let anything happen to her babies, including blowing up her entire life because everyone's gonna blame her for what happened anyway.
Yeah.
I just also think she's a fascinating character because she also seems to, like Sam, she seems aware that like something is happening in this world, and yet she's horrified when she finds the body that she's obviously digging for. So like, it was like being surprised by a Jack-in-the-Box. Like, you knew it was happening. The thing you turn, not the restaurant.
So are you saying that you think that she knew about werewolves?
I kind of thought she was a werewolf at one point in time.
I did too. I was so bummed with this movie that they didn't make Pamela like a werewolf or a former werewolf or something, because that's what it seemed to be pointing to. Suddenly Pamela's character was becoming interesting and dimensional and not just like nice, like suburban, like mom, and God, I was so disappointed that she just disappears after this.
Yeah, we have ultimately given this so much more characterization because after this scene, she gets ditched in the party and then she goes back to her home planet. That's a wrap on our girl.
I was so disappointed that she just fucking disappears, man. Like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, you're right. I have to say, I read that scene as she didn't know about werewolves, but she thought that her kids had just murdered somebody and was like, well, that's all I need to know. Later days, everybody, you're going to blame the mom. Well, you can blame the mom after all three of us are gone in a fiery explosion.
I love that. Merrily, I love that. Because then, justice for Pamela. I hope she goes to Cabo and like starts a new life. Great. Love that.
Yeah,
perfect.
Absolutely. Oh, Pamela. Pamela. All right. Meanwhile, Ginger joins the party. She's changed entirely. Her hair is all white and her facial features are wolfish. All eyes are on her, and she knows it. She heads to Sam's room where she attempts to seduce him. While the two make out briefly, Sam eventually pushes her away. Bridget watches Ginger break Sam's arm, and Bridget rages at her. She tells Ginger to take her if Ginger wants her so bad. Bridget cuts her hand in Ginger's, and then clasps them together, saying, "Now I am you." Ginger, now more animalistic than ever, says, "I know you are, but what am I?" They flee the greenhouse, ditching poor Pamela in the crowd, only for Sam to hit Ginger with a shovel and knock her out in a fucking Looney Tunes-ass scene. Bridget berates Sam, telling him that she had a plan to get Ginger home safely and cure her, but now Sam has fucked that up. They quickly get Ginger in the back of Sam's van and drive to the Fitzgerald home. Can I just say also, going back to Pamela, who I love so much and deserved a lot better, if she had been a werewolf, this basically would have been Turning Red. Like,
yes!
I love that. That's so fun.
Yeah. And I think Turning Red is very much miles and miles a better movie than this. But I think, like... like, the narrative is there, that it makes sense, and it could have added so much more dimension to say, like, you know, Pamela knows what it means to go through puberty in a world where werewolves exist, and that Ginger could have gotten bitten by a werewolf in a way similar that maybe Pamela was cursed. And so Pamela would have been able to reach out to Ginger, and there could have been a connection on that familial level, and it's just not there. And I was so I was so disappointed. It felt like such a waste.
Mm-hmm. Have either of you guys seen the Teen Wolf movie?
No.
Like the movie, not the show.
With Michael J. Fox?
Yeah, the one with Michael J. Fox. Because in that film, the dad is also a werewolf, and this is like a hereditary thing.
Yeah, I think what you're all pitching is a retelling of Teen Wolf with women and exploring and being excited about the Menzies as part of that. I think that would be a great film, and would probably get conservatives really pissed. And like, what more do you need? Hollywood remake Teen Wolf with women.
Yeah, hell yeah.
You're right. I would like that very much, actually.
But in this film, instead, somebody gets hit with a shovel, and I'm looking for Anna Faris and one of the Wayans brothers to be like exchanging a doobie, because that's from a totally different movie.
No, David, they get high at the start of the movie. They're exchanging doobies in the van earlier.
Right.
Oh, boy.
So Bridget and Sam are driving, but Bridget is looking unwell. She has a plan. Get home, cure Ginger and herself, and then run. Leaving Pamela behind, by the way.
They're fine.
Meanwhile, Ginger's final transformation is beginning. We get some lovely shots of Ginger going full body horror.
Yeah.
Before they eventually get to the Fitzgerald home. While Bridget checks to see if her dad is home, Sam realizes that the doors to the van's truck are broken. Ginger, in full werewolf form, is loose in the house. Bridget and Sam, terrorized by Ginger in what I think is the scariest part of the movie, hide in the pantry to try and make the serum. Sam volunteers to inject Ginger, but as he leaves the pantry, he is immediately attacked and dragged away. Bridget looks for Sam, at one point losing the syringe. She finds Sam and Ginger. Ginger licks Sam's blood, and Bridget tries to join in. Ginger seems to accept this behavior, but Bridget eventually vomits and tells Ginger that she can't drink Sam's blood. Ginger kills Sam, and Bridget takes off running. While being chased by Ginger, she finds this syringe and hides in their bedroom. Bridget takes the knife that she stashed earlier and locks the door. With the knife in one hand and the syringe in the other, Bridget watches as Ginger appears in a shadowy open doorway. Ginger stalks Bridget until finally Bridget says, "I'm not dying in this room with you. I'm not dying." Ginger leaps and impales herself on the knife, suffering a mortal wound. The film ends in their room, adorned with pictures of the sisters dead, while Bridget cradles the dead Ginger.
Yeah, this was, I mean, for a final sequence of very high action, this is scary.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's scariest when we don't see the wolf, but the wolf is a good effect. It is good.
Yeah, very much so. They put their budget to the best use that they possibly could and got some really good werewolf effects for 2000.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. Also, just love that it's a practical effect too. I nowadays I would of course be CGI. But I think the practicality of it all just, again, like, it grounds it and makes it more scary because it's real. It can touch you and you can touch it. Or in David's case, you can hit it with a baseball bat.
You can hit it with a baseball bat.
I love that Bridget is able to defeat this toxicity that was Ginger's hold on her. Mm-hmm. Although by killing her, I think the movie ends up asking a lot of questions that it doesn't answer.
Yeah.
Like, what does it say about femininity? Has the monster womanhood been killed? Like, what about the queerness of it all? Like, has Bridget defeated the defender of queer women everywhere? Or is Bridget, as a potential queer person, defeated heteronormativity? Like, there's just so much happening there, and I don't think the movie is prepared to answer those questions.
Well, and we're asking those questions as we look reminiscently on the pictures of their death, which are sort of like harken back to the pact that they made. Again, we're sort of at the end of the film, so there's no more time to justify your thesis. You need to come to a conclusion, and we're sort of left with more questions than answers, which can be fun, but I think in this instance, it sort of falls flat.
Yeah, and it just sort of ends, too. Like, I really would have liked to have seen Pamela and the dad come back. Again, his name is Henry. I had to look it up on Wikipedia. But, you know, like, what are they going to do with Ginger's body? Like, is Ginger's body going to turn back into Ginger? Like, is she just a werewolf forever? Like, it's just, like, on the one hand, it's, like, it's very poetic that it ends where it began, but at the same time, it's just kind of, like, blah, just ends. And I didn't like that.
Yeah.
Too many loose ends.
I mean, you're right. There are a lot of loose ends. I have to say, I personally really loved Bridget repeatedly shouting that she wasn't going to die down there with Ginger. I think that's a huge amount of growth for her character from the beginning, where she was just reluctantly agreeing to that suicide pact. Like, you know, dead at 16, she's a year younger than Ginger. Like, were they gonna her 16 or Ginger 16? And like her just being like, no, I want no part of this. I'm gonna live. I'm not gonna die down here with you. Yeah. I really thought that was, you know, it was really powerful. I really love that for Ginger. I was proud of her.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I also really appreciated that we had some shots where Bridget was holding a knife in one hand and the syringe, the cure, in the other. And that made a lot of, it was a beautiful metaphor. It was really nicely shot, where again, we're back in this like dank basement, unfinished environment, which we are exploring every nook and cranny for these scenes. And it's good. It's effective. I like the idea that no matter what makes its way into Ginger, Ginger will die. Either the queerness werewolf of her will die, she will get out, or the knife will get her and she will die, which is sort of the pact they made from the very beginning. And that had a lot of poetry to me. And it almost seems like her death was happenstance, because she could have easily fallen on the syringe instead. Mm-hmm. And that's just the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other final thoughts for the episode? Any other things that you want to think about with this movie? Any other conversations we want to have?
Like any good podcast, talking about bad media is often going to be longer than talking about good media. Because with good media, you're kind of like, I loved it. Next scene. See Lucas of Frankenstein, like see Psycho. But I think with this one, I had a lot of fun talking with the two of you about it. And I don't want people to think that I'm miserable. But I did not like this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I said at the beginning that this podcast is by haters for haters, but we love media. We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't, you know, fucking love what it is that we were talking about. So yeah, there's good stuff in the movie, and we talked about those things. Like, there's nice moments, but at the same time, like, I think this could have used another couple rounds of drafts. Yeah. Maybe a better editor coming in and saying like, hey, maybe you want to rethink some of these lines. Maybe you want to rethink the tone. Because I think at the end of the day, that's what really kind of messes up the movie for me.
Yeah. Listen, I'm going to say something that's deeply controversial, especially as we were literally last episode talking about how much we loved Lisa Frankenstein as this new, fun, original idea. But I know everyone rightly hates the reboot obsession in our culture. I think that as culturally, we are aching for this to get a reboot. I would love to see this refreshed. I'd love to see it, like, some other person take a crack at the concept of, like, I know it has a sequel and a prequel and all of that jazz. I haven't really seen either of them. I probably will watch them at some point. Because there's a lot to process here with this film, and I think maybe like with the sequel at the very least we can get some more like answers, resolve this somehow. But I really feel like this is a film that a lot of good stuff could happen with some kind of reboot, be it a TV show or another movie or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cult film, so it's loved. I mean, there was a fandom made for it that explored like Hockey Kid and his origins, who was like the owner of the Yappy Dog. So, I mean, there's people who are interested in this. Mm-hmm. I think that if the film was able to have one concrete thing it was trying to do and it did it, it would be awesome. So again, I think you could put this in the hands of John Waters and make it high camp, and it would be shown every Halloween to thrilled audiences everywhere, and they would laugh about it, and it would be gay as fuck. Or you could put it in the hands of like a wild auteur director who would then take it into this very deep art house space, and that would also be very exciting. I think you could resurrect some of the Turning Red themes that Tyler brought up by bringing Pamela up and just ditching Frank, and God, just get rid of Sam. Just make Pamela know everything about werewolves, and like it's a mother d'other thing.
Exactly.
I just think there is so much potential here, Marilee. So I too love an original concept, but this was an original concept. It just didn't get its time in the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I can see why everyone talks about this as one of the great werewolf films. Unfortunately, that is not a very high bar to clear. So I think that we really, God, give us another, put this one back in, coach. I really want to see what happens next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and to anyone who's listening who's bummed that we didn't talk more about werewolfism, lycanthropy as a sexually transmitted infection, I'm sure we'll come back to the STI in the horror film genre, because we get quite a bit of that about a decade after this film comes out. So like, good on it for being a little bit more new in the space to it, but we can talk about other things that I think did a little bit better job on that tact as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this to me, this definitely felt like the proof of concept that something like this could exist. You could make a movie about growing up and also make it scary about werewolves. You can make a movie where the main characters are women and the movie is kind of marketed towards women and about women experiences. And again, you don't see too much of that, including today. Like, I think, we had Lisa Frankenstein, which was a delightful movie, but it did really poorly at the box office. So, get it together, people out there. Let's watch some more movies where women are the focus and we want women to be the main audience here. And it's also really scary. So yeah, I think, this is we can see the DNA of this movie spread. The curse itself sort of spreads across horror movies over the next decade after this. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to check out photos of us dead or any of the other fun content on our social media, please come find us at Fear Coded Pod on Instagram and Twitter.
And this podcast is a proud part of the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective. If you'd like to listen to more queer media podcasts, check out the full roster of shows at glitterjaw.com. And join us next time as we leap into the digital realm, talk about our first video game, and it's a real scary one, or at least it was for me, because I was certain ghosts were everywhere, and spoiler alert, they are not. So we'll be talking about sisterhood, lesbianism, and more in our next episode where we cover Gone Home. Bye.
Bye.